Good morning. It's Monday, October 20th. I'm Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So, looking at some of your top headlines here, we do have stock futures rising with traders optimistic by Trump's comments that the U.S. will be fine with China ahead of the trade talks between the two sides. So, it's going to be a busy week here for earnings. You got Tesla, Netflix, General Motors, amongst some of the companies reporting. The S&P 500 up about 0.2% at 6716. You got the NASDAQ up about 0.3% of 25,060. Some of those regional bank fears, well, those are declining here because you got the Russell 2000 up over 0.5% at 2,479. That's up 15 points. So a big boost higher here on the Russell 2000. You got treasuries, which rallied last week's. With that trade war, the credit quality jitters, those are all declining today. So it's a big risk on appetite here at the moment. Trump said that rare earths, fentanyl, soybeans, those are the top issues with China. So you look at soybeans, they're up about 1% here at 1028. As far as fears about more cockroaches in the credit markets, well, we aren't seeing much evidence here of any kind of contagion. So you look at the market concerns. What is the media? What's the narrative that they're driving in this volatility? You got the trade tensions here between the U.S. and China. Well, that's fading. U.S. government shutdown, that's kicked down the curb. You got the AI bubble that's starting to fade away here. And credit concerns about regional banks in the U.S. economy, that's fading as well. So, but when you get the increased volatility, it's really important here to look at the average true range on any product that you're trading. Even if it's a stock, a miner, things like that, keep that on your chart. That's going to help you keep in check here as far as your emotions at the door, because increased volatility tends to trigger those emotions in that emotional ride. And you could see that when volatility comes down, you have less volatility that's triggering you. So keep that on your radar here. So when you get that increased volatility, the average true range, it's important to exercise more patience with your trading. So you look at the silver market. Silver had shot up dramatically here last week, pulling back about $2-3 here over the weekend here and into this overnight session. We're at 50.58. That's up about 1%. So a nice snapback in the market here. But it is important to note that 54% of silver's demand is industrial demand, and it's facing substitution risk. So silver is now the biggest material cost input as far as solar module production after prices hit that all-time high in October. It overtakes aluminum, which is used for the module frame and the PV glass as well. So they'll start to look at copper, they'll start to look at aluminum and things like that as far as substituting some of that silver that goes into those input costs. Now, some critical levels of trend support, they are continuing to rise in both gold and silver with 40.28, your critical level on the gold market, and then silver 47.78. You look at some U.S. equity insights here. The CTAs, they got about $46 billion to sell here in the S&P 500 if it drops below 65 to 6,600. So we're about 117 points above that level here. So no fears here being triggered by that market, by those structures that go on within the CTAs. You can track a lot of this stuff just online as far as what's going on. You'll get your checklist on the pulse of the markets, the trends, the FX rundown here. The dollar up 13 at 98.30. You'll get the 10-year treasury yields. Those are up one basis point here at 401. And then the VIX down 15 at 2076. Do yourself a favor, pull up that chart of the VIX. You'll see that wild volatility that we've seen really starting to come back down. As we dip below that 20 level, you'll start to see U.S. equities, they should continue to take off to the upside. You go to Europe and Asia here, European stocks, they rebounded Monday. That risk appetite really improved as you get the talks between Washington and Beijing that struck some friendlier tone and headlines here, and the regional bank jitters, well, those faded away. So you got energy stocks and industrials, they're really outperforming. Asian stocks, they advance across the board, lifted by hopes of policy support here as that key critical policy meeting, political meeting here comes up here with China easing some of those trade tensions. So you get the MSCI rising about 1.9% to close at a record. And then you look at earnings here, 58 of the S&P 500 companies have reported so far this season. 85% of them are beating forecasts, 14% have missed here. So you do have the Mag 7 projected to grow earnings by about 15% in Q3, and the remaining 493 companies here by about 4%. There's no notable company earnings or economic data here expected out today. You go to the central banks, what are we thinking about future interest rate cuts? Well, we're in that external communications blackout period here. So October 18th on up to the 30th. That's when you got that CME. The Fed watch tool, you look at the October 28th, 29th meeting, 98.9% chance of a 25 basis point interest rate cut. So really, we have no central bankers talking, and we have no economic data coming out. So it's going to be tough to really drive this market. I would say that Trump's Truth Social and Twitter feed is going to be the #1 driver of any kind of volatility in these markets here. So you look at the precious metals, the ETF flows. Well, ETFs, they increase their gold holdings for here for the 6th straight day. They are buying in silver. So you got an 18% percentage change. That's the total gold held by ETFs that rose 18% this year to 98.2 million ounces, the highest level since September 22nd, 2022. Gold's up 62% this year, and it fell 1.7% here on Friday. You look at some of the last week's changes here. The ETFs, they increased their gold holdings, they reduced their silver holdings, they increased their platinum and also palladium holdings, and the gold to silver ratio sitting at 84-1. So that's quite interesting here as silver losing a lot of ground to the gold market. If you guys got any questions, you want to open up a futures trading account, shoot an email to info@bluelinefutures.com. Remember that futures and option trading does involve risk of loss, may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck and good trading.